Hi, this is Joe Bolen, and today we're going to look at programming using our if-then-else logic, our decision logic. I emphasize that one of the most important things in computer programming is being able to make decisions to monitor and guide the flow of your program logic in a program. So today we're going to create a student grade calculator using simple program logic. So let's begin by first of all looking at my initial design for this student grade calculator. I have on the screen the sketch that I made of a calculator that I'd like to create. And I named a form, grade form. I gave it the title and the caption area of student grade calculator. One thing I'll be introducing is the GroupBox. This is to group a series of radio buttons that we're going to also be introduced in this segment. And the radio buttons have a unique feature that only one of them can be checked. In this case, you'll see the pass-fail I highlighted as the initial value. If I were to click on the letter grade, it would become highlighted and the other one would go dim. So it is like a switch in a sense. Only one can be activated of the radio buttons. We also will see the use again of the quick access code where we use the Alt key with the letter to quickly jump to locations on our screen. You see the G of grade type, you see the C for score, and the S for submit as I designed this. This way I can keep a heads down, not use my mouse, and quickly jump to different areas of the form. So we've got our basic form and some of the things I've set up for the design of that form. Then I went in and created a pseudocode for the processing of this. And you'll see I have a pass-fail type and also a letter grade type on that. And based off of whatever is entered in for the score, we want to receive back the grade that that student's score represents. So let's take a look at the logic. So on the submit button click event, I'm going to go through and declare the variables. I'm going to convert the information that is submitted into a numeric data type. Then I'm going to use that information of the score and process it to see if I do a pass-fail, and then go through the logic. And then once I've determined the score, then I want to place at the very end the cursor back into the text box for the next time around. Also, if someone were to change the values in the score text box, I want to erase or clear out the results label so that it reflects that it hasn't been processed yet. Now, very simply in our logic, we're going to first of all look whether we're doing a pass-fail, and if it's a pass-fail logic, then we're going to look for a grade of 60 or better being pass. Otherwise, we're going to have a grade of fail on that. And then if we choose to go with the letter grade logic, then we're going to break it down a little bit more discreetly and look at whether the student got something better than or equal to 90, where they get an A. If they don't, then we'll look and see if they have something better than or equal to 80. They'll get a B. Then we'll also look, if they didn't get that, to see if they got better or equal to 70. Now, the important thing is it can only be one thing that'll happen here. They'll hit the A, and then they'll jump out of the logic. They'll hit the B, and then they'll jump out of the logic, or they'll hit the C or the D, and hopefully not the F, but they can only have one possible grade. So it's very important that as you make a logic tree, that you make it so that the selection is such that you have a progression of how to look at the different things that are being evaluated. So this is our basic algorithms that we're going to use: the pass-fail logic, the letter grade logic, then our general logic for the events that will have the button submit button event and the change of any text that appears in our score text box. So let's get into Visual Studio and begin the actual project of creating our student grade calculator. So I'm at the start page and I'm going to just click on New Project. And this project will be a Windows desktop project. It'll be a Windows form project. And I'm going to back level it back to a Net Framework 4 for this one. So it's a Network Forms application. We're going to call it Student Grade Calculator. And then I'm going to hit the OK button. And this brings up my form designer, and I have the default in the solution area as form 1. First thing I'm going to do is rename the form by highlighting it, then right-clicking on it and selecting rename, and name this one grade form. And this will make it unique from just a default form 1, and I've got that set as now grade form. Now I'm going to come over to the form itself, begin the process of setting the properties in design mode of the grade form. So first of all, I'm going to check, make certain the name is correct, which it is. Then I'm going to come down and set the font size to the Microsoft recommended guidelines for the font. So I hit the ellipsis on the font, bringing up the design of the font, and I'm going to click over on the font side and go to Seago, hit the S to go to Seago UI, regular font style, but 9-point font. And that's the guideline recommended by Microsoft for Windows desktop forms. The form itself is resized with that change, and that's good. Now we want to change the form a little bit because it will not be a square form in this particular design that I have. Just going back to look at our form, it'll be a little bit more rectangular in shape, and I have already sort of looked ahead to figure out what I need to have for the form size. So with that being said, let's go to the size parameters, and I could use the sizing handles, but I'm just going to key in directly the values 388 by 208. And that'll set my form size correctly. Then I want to come down and set the start position for this one. Instead of the default Windows default location, I'm going to start out with it being in center screen. And the text where my caption appears will be what I call the program Student Grade Calculator. And there now I have the title on it. Now I need to add a few other things, but before I go any further, I want to save that. So I'm going to hit Save All, make certain I save the information. And I'm going to call this in my projects folder Student Grade Calculator. And I'm going to have a solution name as well, and I'm going to hit Save. Okay, we've got the initial part of our calculator saved. Now it's time to start creating the parts that go on our calculator. So I'm going to bring out the toolbox, and I'm going to pin it down so I can keep it there before me. Okay, one of the things I'm going to put in there is a group box, and I come down to the containers on this one to get the group box. And I'm going to make certain I find it. There's the group box. I'm going to drag it up this time and sort of locate it that way so I can get it placed. Now, a group box is a container with a title to it. So we want to come to the group box properties and set that. And this particular text property for the group box will be called grade type. And I'm going to use the quick access key of the ampersand in front of the G to allow a person to quickly jump to the group box. Okay, so I've got grade type set, And then I also want to make certain that I've named the group box from just plain GroupBox, and I'm just going to call this group type GroupBox. Grade type GroupBox, sorry. So I've just given it a simple name, grade type GroupBox, with a text on that of ampersand grade type, and I'm going to put a colon at the end of that to go with the Microsoft standards. At this point, then I want to put inside my GroupBox my two radio buttons. So at this point, I come to the common controls, and I will have a radio button that I'm going to bring on in and drop it inside the GroupBox. So I'm going to set it right about there and let go. And I'm also going to copy this one, so I'm going to do a Control C while I've got it highlighted, and then a Control V to paste another one in and get it lined up underneath. Now I'm going to come back to the top one, and we'll give it a name on that. This particular one will be the pass-fail radio button. That's the name. And for this one, the text for it will be, once again, taking advantage of the quick access, I'm going to use the ampersand P, then ASS, fail. Get my spelling right. And so we now see pass fail for this one. And what I'm going to do is select ahead of time that this will have a check property of true. And now you see it highlighted with it glowing with a radio button lit up with the pass fail being set. Let's go to the second one, give it a name. And this one we'll call letter grade radio button. And for the text on this one, we'll use letter grade, where the L is the quick access on that. So I'll put ampersand LETTER grade. Okay. So now we've got two radio buttons inside there, and I'm going to now do a little resizing and bring the box down a little smaller and tighten it up a little bit so it looks a little bit better on that. Now we've got the group type box done. Now we're ready to add in our first label, and I'm going to come over here and drop the label right about here. And this label will be called the score label. And I'm going to put in for its text and this time I'm going to make the C the quick access. So I'm going to type in S ampersand C ORE colon on that. So I've got now my label for before my text box on that, and I've got that set. Now I'm going to bring in my text box and drag it right in front of the score and let go. And this one I'll call this text box name the score text box. And for this one, I think what I'm going to do is set it so that the value entered in on its text alignment is going to be, in this case, centered. So I'm going to center the text that goes in there, or in this case, the number that goes in there, centered in the box. Okay, we've got that. The text is blank because we're going to be filling it in, and we're going to call it the score text box. The next thing I want to put in then is another label, and I'm going to just highlight the score again, hit the Control C, then the Control V to copy and paste. Line it up sort of similar to the score one above it. Going to call this one the grade label. And I'm going to give it also a text on this. And since this is going to be pointing to another label, it will not have a quick access key assigned to it. So I just have grade with a colon on the end of that. Now I'm going to create a label that it looks just like the text box except for a few characteristics. One of the things I'm going to note is the size is 100 by 23 as I create a new label. So let's create a new label, and I'm going to drop it right there. And this label, I'm going to size it by same size, 100 by 23, and I'm going to take auto size off, make it false, and I'm going to give it the name of the grade result label, which will be where we put our output. And the border style on this one, I'm going to change to fixed 3D. Okay. And our output for text alignment is going to be text align. Instead of top left, we're going to make it middle center, and we'll take the text part of it out by deleting the text and then tabbing out of it, and then I'm going to click on the form and see how it looks. And it looks like we're lined up pretty good. I'm going to just do a little quick eyeballing. It looks like we've got it set. Now the last thing is to put in our button for the submitting to process our grade. So I'm going to drop my button in and get it set about there. I think I'll bring all these down just a hair. So I've dragged my cursor over all the score, the grade, and the text box and the result label to highlight it. Then I'm going to just drag it down a little bit, and I'm going to move it over just a little bit for making it look better, and then release my mouse. Then I'm going to come back to the mouse and give the button a name. This one will be called the submit button. And then I'm going to give the text for this one & submit. That way, if you hit the Alt key plus the S, you'll quickly click on the button. So we've got that set. Now, one last thing I'd like to do is I'd like it to make it so that if I'm up in the score text box and I've entered in a value, that I can just hit the enter key and act as if I'd come down and clicked on the submit button. And I can do that by setting the accept button attribute of the form. So I'm going to go back to the form, and up at the top is in our alphabetical listing is a accept button. Right now it's none, but I'm going to hit the drop down and change it to the submit button. So when I hit the enter key, it'll act as if I had hit the submit button. Okay, we've got that all set. Then I'm going to come up to format and lock my controls so I don't accidentally bump them. You'll see a little lock over on the side, and then I'm going to do a save all to save my form. At this point I'm ready to start the code, so I'm going to get rid of my toolbox, and we're going to have a situation where I'm going to have the submit button, and also as I enter in data here, we will have the change event occur. So we'll have two different events. So I'm going to start off with the submit button, and the easiest way is to just click on this to create the default submit click event. So I'm going to double click on the submit button, and there's our code. I'm going to change the magnification a little bit bigger so we can see it, and then I'm going to hit a underscore character just before the H, and then hit the enter key so we can wrap that down and see it a little bit better. Then I'm going to go back to my form again, and then I want to come back up to score, and I'm going to double click on the score text box, and here I'm also going to use the continuation character, make it easier to see. And we'll see that we now are dealing with the text change event of these two. So here are our two events that we're going to be working with. I'm going to hit a save all to make certain everything's saved at this point. Now let's take a look at our pseudocode again. And I've already done this to make it a little bit quicker. I've created a series of to-do logics. So let's bring these to-do logics in of our pseudocode. So I'm going to copy this in. I'm going to just paste that in here. And I'm also going to paste the last part in. Okay. So we've got our to-do, and if we go up to View, and then we go to Other Windows, we can go to our Task windows, our task list, and see what we have on that. And I can do that also by Control-Alt-K. Now I've got my task list, and I'm going to change it to comments. Whoops, there we go. Get it just right. There we go, with our comments. And we see our to-do list that we're going to work on. Let me bring that back down a little bit. So these are the things we need to complete. Once again, I'm going to do a quick save all to keep everything intact. Now, let's move this up above, first of all, and I'll grab that and do a Control-X and paste it in front of it, Control-V. And since we're getting ready to write this, I'm just going to take the to-do part out and comment that we're going to process and calculate the grade when we submit it. Now, one other thing I haven't done yet is set option strict. So I'm going to add a couple lines of code in front of the class, option strict on. And that'll keep me mindful of narrowing of fields and making certain I declare everything properly as I proceed through the code. Now the first thing is to declare our variables that we're going to be needing. So let's begin that process in our first part of this. We're going to take the to-do part out, and I'm going to declare with the dim statement, score is going to be my variable, use the reserve as, and this one is going to be a double data type on that. So I declared score as double. Now I need to convert what I have from this score text box into that value. So we'll change our comment a little bit. We're going to take and use the double triparse. And this will attempt to look at whatever we entered in. In this case, we're going to look at the score text box. We're going to look at its text property. And if it is able to be parsed into a double data type, we want the results to go into the variable we call score. Okay, and that takes care of that part. Now we got to determine if we're going to be using our if-then logic. Let's take a look back at the form, and we see we've got this process in here where we're going to look for pass, fail, or letter grade to see how we're going to process the form. So let's go back to our code, and what we're going to do is the first use of the if logic on that. So let me change the to-do part out, and we'll begin to write our code underneath it. So we're going to look at that radio button to see what we have. And I'm going to look at the first one, which is the pass-fail radio button. So I'm going to say if pass-fail radio button, I'm going to look at its check property. And right now it should be true, which it is the way we set it as default. So I could say if it's checked equals true, then else on that. But since I know that this is also going to result with a true-false Boolean value for this particular property, I don't need to say equal to true. I can just leave it like this, and you'll see a lot of programmers do this. If this statement right here, this expression evaluates to true, then I'm going to process anything that relates to the pass-fail here. Otherwise, I'm going to go with letter grade. So what we want to do is we're going to look at our pass grade logic that we're going to put in. So I'm going to bring this on up, and we're going to do it right here on that. And if I don't have a pass-fail logic, then I'm going to be doing letter grade logic. So I'm going to bring this part up into this section. Okay. Okay, so now we've got our logic that we're going to work on. Let's start just with the pass-fail part. So I'm going to make this now just a comment, not a to-do list. And what I'm going to look at is if it is pass-fail, then I'm going to look at the score. So I'm going to say if score is greater than or equal to 60, then we're going to have a pass situation, else we're going to have a fail situation. So if, then, so we got an else that we need to put in here as well. Okay, so if we have a pass situation greater than 60 or equal to 60, then I want to put in my result label, grade result label, into its text property, the string, in this case it's going to be inside the quotes, and it's going to say passed, pass on that. Otherwise, I'm going to copy this to save a little time, else I didn't pass, and so I'm going to say failed. It's a pass-fail. Okay, we've got that logic in. So let's check just this particular logic. We will finish out. Now, one of the things we have to do is then also put our cursor back into the score text box. And so I'm going to do that next before we start our test. I'm going to come down here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the grade, the score text box, and I'm going to put the cursor in it by using the focus method. And that'll put the cursor back into that spot. So we've got this section set. We haven't done the letter grade logic yet. It's still on our to-do list on that, and we haven't taken care of clearing our grade results label. But let's run what we have at this point. So I'm going to do a save all and then start F5. Start our debug. Let's put into our score 55, which is less than 60, and hit the submit button. And I got a fail for the grade, which is correct. Let's put in exactly 60, which should be passed. Passed very poorly, but passed. And if I have anything greater than that, like 99, I'll also have passed. So we've got the pass-fail logic ready to run. It's taking a look at whether the check has been selected for this, as a check status of true, and processing the pass-fail. Now, the possibility is that I go with the letter grade. And if I go with the letter grade, at this point I've got to add logic to my processing to work on letter grade. So let's cancel this and go back into our code and deal with the letter grade logic. So I'm going to turn this now into a comment, and we're going to add the letter grade logic. So the first thing I'm going to do is say, if the score is greater than or equal to 90, then I'm going to give a grade result label text property, giving it a A, which is a nice thing to receive. Now, so I've got the if greater than or equal to 90, I'm going to get an A. But what if I don't get that? So then I have an else. So I'm going to put the else in. Now I'm going to evaluate to see if I got something greater than 80. So if score is greater than or equal to 80, then I'm going to give a grade result of a B. But let's say I didn't score greater than or equal to 80, then I've got another else. And there's where I need to check to see, do I have something greater than 70? And if I get something greater than or equal to 70, then I'm going to get a C. But what if I score something less than that? I've got another else. If the score is now greater than or equal to 60, then I'm going to get a grade result, in this case, equal to D. Now, if I really do poorly, I'll have something other than a D, and that we know is a F. So I don't need to check for the score anymore. I'll just assign to the grade result the value of F. And so now we've got our logic, and you'll see that this is nested in with a series of if, then, else logic on that. So let's see this part run now and see if we're going to get our grade letters correct for processing. So I'm going to hit Save All, then I'm going to hit F5 or the Start button, and we'll start debugging. This time I'm going to start out and put in a 95, which is greater than 90, and I should get an A. Whoops, we got pass-fail. That's right. So now let's change our letter grade and now hit Submit. I've got my A. Now let's put in a 85, which is greater than 80. I should get a B. Let's take a look at 75. Should get a C. If I put in something like 65, not very good, but I got a D. If I did something less than that, let's say I got 55, well, I got an F. So we've got that process working correctly as well. Now, one of the things that can happen here is I change this up here, but my grade still shows an F. And it might be confusing to the user because they haven't hit yet the submit button. So what I want to do is, as soon as I do any changes up here, I want this to be cleared out. And that is what we're going to do next. So let's come back to our code. And here's where that change occurs under the text change event. And all we have to do for this particular one is, first of all, I'm going to take it and remove it as a to-do list, make it a comment, and all we're going to do is take the grade result label, its text property, and we're going to make it a string empty on it. Now we could use two quotes like this, but I recommend we use the reserved word string empty on that, and that sets it to an empty string, not a null, but an empty string. And so anytime there is a change in that text box, we're going to clear out the result. So let's see that part run as well. Save all, start. Let's change it to a letter grade. Let's put in 88 and hit submit. I got a B. And let's say the next grade I enter in is 72. As soon as I started to enter in, you notice the grade cleared out, and that's exactly what I wanted to have happen on that. Now let's also check to see if my submit key, the accept key, works. So I'm going to enter in a value of 89 and hit just the enter key and not the button, and it should act as if I hit the submit button, and it did. So we got that, and we can switch it back to pass fail and hit submit and see that I passed. So we've got our student grade calculator working just fine on that. Now let's take a look back at our code, and I want to emphasize that all we did was use the if-else logic on that. We checked first of all to see if we were using the radio button. We wanted to see if this was equal to a true value, and so we looked at just one radio button. The one thing nice about radio buttons is only one of them can have a value of true, and in this case we only have two, so I don't need to do checking of more than one button. So I checked just the first one. Based off of that, I knew I was dealing with the pass-fail logic or I was dealing with the letter grade logic. And then I began the code below it. And then we see a series of nested ones with the letter grade where we have a lot of ifs occurring. And all this cascades through our tree, with ending with a lot of end ifs to end out our logic. And you can see in our version of 2013 of Visual Basic, we have the nice lines to help us see the indentation that occurs. Then I set the focus back to the text box on that at the end of the run for the next entry. And if I changed anything in the text box, we cleared out that grade. Now let's do one thing to make this even a little bit tighter. Instead of a if then else type logic with a lot of nested, we use the if else in this case. So I'm going to put my cursor right there and hit delete and bring this up. And I'm going to do this for the series of these. And you'll see something really nice. It'll clean up the look of this. So now I've got this broken up, and now I can just take this part out, these three right here, in my logic, and you'll see that I can make that a lot tighter looking with the if-else, which is like the if then else nesting if statements, but a little bit tighter, cleaner look for your code. This makes it a little nicer to look at. And I also want to emphasize that even though we only have one thing that we're doing after we evaluate the score, we could have a lot of steps taking place after each part of the evaluations. We could not only have steps that appear, a series of steps that appear here, but we could also call other procedures to be executed on that. And then once they're executed, they would jump to the end if statements and proceed to the next statement after the end if on that. So we've seen in this particular exercise that the end if statement is very powerful and allows us to control the logic. And we've created a nice, very simple but very usable one for teachers, the grade calculator, so they can quickly find out how to process things. On that, one last thing I'd like to show you though is the tab order. Let's get that tab order fixed because I didn't like the way I saw it. So let's go back in our code and I'll show you how to get the tab order done. So I'm back in my code and I'm going to go back to the designer and highlight the form, and I'm going to hit on the view button and come down to the tab order option and set the tab order. Now right now the tab order was the way we put the code in, but I want the tab order to be a little different. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to click on the score label, which will not get focused, but it'll pass it to the next one over. So I'm going to start here to here, and once I've got that, I want to jump right down to the submit button on that because that's all I'll be entering in. Now if I need to change something, I might want to come up to the grade type. So I'll come back up here, and then I'll have the order here, here, and while I don't need to do this, I'll go ahead and click on these last two. Since they'll never receive focus, basically it'll jump to the next one that can receive focus. So I'll click on these two and finish that out. At that point I'll hit the escape key. Let's rerun this real quickly. Now we'll see that as I tab through, it started right in the score spot. I'll put in a 99 and hit some, and this tab this time, and you'll see I'll go right to the submit button, which I did. I'm going to hit the enter now, and I got the grade. Now let's say I need to go up to the grade type. All I have to do is hit the Alt key and hit G, and then I could go to Alt L to go to letter, and then I could hit Alt S to submit, and I've got my grade. So the quick access key is a nice thing to do, but you also want to take a look at the tab order as you process things. So, get your hands dirty in the code. Try out this little example on this to get an idea of how to use that if, then, else logic. Now, the important thing is to take a look at your pseudocode because you want to look at how you have to have your logic correctly. Plan ahead any calculations that you might need in that pseudocode so that once you get to the code in the program, you'll know how to create the correct arithmetic type statements so that you'll have the evaluations correct on how you want to process something on that. So the if, then, else is a powerful one to look at and see in action. We'll take a look at this exact same program in the next segment. This time we're going to learn about the select case statement instead of the if logic for our decision-making logic. So until next time, get your hands dirty in the code and take care.